Blog Talk Radio.
Absolutely nothing. Oh, bring me in here. Oh, my goodness. Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. I am Jesse Starcher, and I am not normally the host of the Screaming Boy podcast. However, I'm bringing you in here tonight Ronnie Adams is on his way. We'll just put it that way. He has, we discussed 9:30. He is on his way. He's a working man, so got to give him some leeway. You know, work sometimes. It interferes with the podcast haps. That's okay. But this evening, I do not know what we have on tap for you, other than it's going to be military themed. That's right. It's all military all the time week right here on the Radulich in Broadcasting Network. And if you have not had the opportunity to listen to the content that we brought this week so far, I want to run it down for you here real quick, as if you can't tell that I'm stalling for Ronnie Adams. We have source material, which happened on Monday, where me and Ronnie Adams discussed Sergeant Rock, Between Hell and a Hard Place. Great comic book. We mixed some music in there. It was a lot of fun. So if you have the opportunity, if you dig comic books, we break that one down for you, kind of give you our thoughts on what happens in it. Very good, very fun stuff. Now, after that was Tuesday's Damn You Hollywood episode of Dunkirk. That's right. It was most likely Mark Radulich, Robert Winfrey, and I think superfan Andrew Graham, who all got together and talked about the recent release of Dunkirk in the theaters. So if you have the opportunity, check that out. Wednesday, we abandoned the theme, and the Metal Hammer of Doom hit. Me, Mark Radulich, and Robert Cooper went on the Metal Hammer of Doom, and we brought you In This Moment. That's right. In This Moment's release of Ritual, which is a female-led metal core band, I believe is what they call themselves. I don't know if you can call them metalcore now, because it was the album seems to have departed from at least what Mark Radulich has played for me, their original, I wouldn't say their roots, but at least what seemed to be a heavier time back about 6 or 7 years ago. So that was Wednesday. And Thursday, boy, oh boy, I think that right there was TV Party Tonight with 5 came back, and I believe it was Mark Radulich and Andrew Graham once again, and there might have been a couple other guests on there as well, talking about the Netflix. I don't know if it's a Netflix produced series. I don't know much about the show, but I know it's called 5 Came Back. Fit in with the theme here perfectly, something to do with the military. So the title tonight, some kind of military-related themed show. I don't know what exactly we're working for here when it comes to. We're going to find something to talk about, something to discuss, dealing with the military, or something along those lines. Now, was I prepared for the host of Screaming Boy not to be here? Absolutely not. The only thing I was prepared for was make sure I had a good intro song, which I could play again for you people, but I won't. I won't do that. what we will do, though, however, let me just tell you, before I got on here, I'm going to throw this link up onto at least up on the Facebook right now. If you follow me, Jesse Starcher, on Facebook, I just watched this crazy video off of dig.com. Now, if anybody knows much about dig.com, almost, I wouldn't say the predecessor to Reddit, but I can remember I was a Dig fan before I was a Reddit fan. And Dig had this crazy video of a thermite grenade being, I guess, let off over in the Ukraine. It was a Russian, here we go. Russian drone with thermite grenade blows up a billion, that's with a B, $1 billion of Ukrainian ammo. Now, I love viral videos just as much as the next person. But I got on this thing, and I sat there, and it was like 5 minutes till, and I'm like, I'm not, I'll just watch this to pass the time. And all of a sudden, I'm enthralled with what's going on, because it starts out as a decent explosion, or not explosion, but it's just a lot of smoke rolling off of it. There's all sorts of crazy things just flying sideways, this, that way, and the other. And, next thing I know, it's like 2 minutes into the video, and I realize it's almost a 4-minute video. About 2 minutes, 30 seconds into it, all of a sudden, this huge explosion happens. And, I mean, it's cool because when you watch these videos, especially with explosions, I mean, this thing was a massive explosion. You just see it happen on the screen, and the guys are sitting there talking, and then about probably 10 or 20 seconds later, the shockwave and the loud boom hits them. And it doesn't knock them over, but it scares the ever-living crap out of them. And it's just amazing to watch. So, yeah, I'm throwing that in there because that's somewhat military and war-related in some way. Let's, I guess, what we'll do? We'll find a list. Let's kill it with a list while Ronnie Adams is making his way here. I'll send him a message. Yep. Here we go. We're going to find a list. Let's start with songs. You guys want to check out what a top list of military-related songs is? We'll do war songs about war, because it seems like Ronnie says problems abound. Well, that's all right. Take your time. We'll kill it with a list, Ronnie Adams. You'll appreciate my list finding skills. So going solo here on the Screaming Boy podcast. All right, so let's look up top 10 war-related songs. Okay, let's do top 10 war songs. See what we get. All right. First link up. Ultimate classic rock. Now, I can always dig a good classic rock song. Let's take a look, see what we got here. Hopefully they count them down 10 to 1. I'm sure we can just give the for one. All right, ultimate classic rock. Top 10 songs about war. Ooh, that's a good one. All right, here we go. Top 10 is one. That's right. Based on Dalton Trumbo's 1939 book, Johnny Got His Gun, which I did not know. I know I've seen the video to one, and it's there's a lot of clips from a black and white movie in there. I can remember, this came out in 1988. I can remember watching that video and just being horrified at the fact that there was a guy who was, I assume he was mute. This guy's laying in a hospital bed. I'm trying to do my best. Anybody who's not seen the video, that may be Ronnie Adams right there. Let's take a look. Ronnie Adams. It comes up restricted. I'm kind of scared of answering a restricted phone call. Ronnie Adams, answer your messenger. Let me know that you. Anyway, here we go. Ronnie Adams says it is. It is. All right, it's Ronnie Adams. Here we go. Man.
What?
What?
Man,
What am I
hate
going?
Blog Talk Radio.
10 minutes. 10 minutes, Ronnie Adams. I had to vent.
What in the world were you talking about?
Okay. First off, I shared the video I was talking about earlier about this munitions factory in Ukraine that got blowed up by a Russian thermite grenade. One single solitary thermite grenade caused a tremendous amount of damage. You'll have to see that when you get a chance. But I was just like, okay, what am I going to do? So I went to the top 10 songs about war from Ultimate Classic Rock.
Nice.
So I say we'll do that real quick. Have you ever seen the video to Metallica's One?
I have not.
Okay, all right.
I have, but it's been a long, long time.
Yeah, it's completely black and white, but it's it's heavy as crap. It's the first time I think I ever actually paid attention to Metallica back in the day. It came out in '88, but I remember the guy, because they kept showing clips of this movie, and there's a guy laying in a hospital bed, and I think he just wants to die. He's trying to get them, or he's trying to deal with his situation, and then finally he decides that he just doesn't want to live anymore because he lost his ears, he lost his eyes, he lost his mouth, and he lost his legs and arms. Yeah. So imagine trying to deal with something like that. But yeah, Metallica. Yeah, I would rather not. I would rather not. All right, here we go. Number 9. Number 9. I Feel Like I'm Fixin' to Die Rag by Country Joe and the Fish. I have never heard of that.
What?
Yeah. No clue. Moving on. There's YouTube videos here on the website, by the way, if anybody wants to check that out. UltimateClassicRock.com. Songs about war. All right. Number 8, Bruce Springsteen's Devils and Dust. This came out in 2005, so I imagine that's probably based off of the war in the Middle East. Indeed.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Pink Floyd, When the Tigers Broke Free. I'm a Pink Floyd fan. How about you?
Yeah.
I don't mind Pink Floyd. Don't know that song either. Moving on. Then we have number 6. Number 6. An Iron Maiden song that is probably the most popular Iron Maiden song ever to be played, and that is "Run to the Hills" from the Number of the Beast. Inspired by the wars between Native Americans and white settlers. Run to the hills. There you go. It's a wonderful rendition of it. Number 5.
Wow.
Number 5, Masters of War by Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Now, this one made an appearance and is part of the source material Sergeant Rock Between Hell and a Hard Place Spotify soundtrack. I can't remember what I named it, but that's it.
Nice.
The Spotify EP, and that is War Pigs by Black Sabbath.
That's right. It appeared.
Number 3, by a band called The Band on an album called The Band. The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. Civil War
I'm
song.
familiar
apparently.
with that one.
Yeah, I'm not. Oh, number 2 is our opener. Ronnie Adams wasn't even around for the opener. Wasn't even here to hear me open it up.
Good reason.
Here, okay. Edwin Starr from War and Peace, 1970. War. Huh. What is it good for?
Good for.
That's number 2. And number 1, would you like to guess? I doubt you're on the website, but would you like to guess what the number 1 song about war from UltimateClassicRock.com is?
Hit me with it.
I believe it's been in quite a few movies. How about this? I'll name the album first, because if I give the band away, you might get it. But the album was called. The album was called. Came out in 1969. Willie and the Poor Boys.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All right. Band name.
Help me out.
The band name.
I feel like
Creedence,
an idiot.
The band name is Creedence Clearwater Revival. CCR.
Right.
Name of the #1 song, Fortunate Son. Yep, you got it. Nice moves. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. I have stalled long enough. Welcome the host of the Screaming Boy podcast. His name is Ronnie Adams. What's going on, buddy?
Dude, this is why you are an amazing person, and that's why we keep you around. Let me tell you a little bit.
Tell me a story.
So, you know of my computer woes.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, while we're live on the network and all this other stuff, and
yep.
So I decided, hey, I'll just use my iPad to call in tonight, and for some reason, it won't connect to a phone call. So I'm like, oh, fantastic. And so I don't connect it. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I still got my Skype account. I'll just use it. Oh, failed on that one, too. Just can't remember my password.
Oh, no.
So they're like, well, it's easy to create a new account. So I use my phone number, and I create a new account. And I'm like, okay, so I'll just create a new account. And then I tried to call in. It's like, you can't make the phone call. You don't have any Skype credit.
No.
So I'll have you know that no matter what, the fearless leader, I'm not even a leader, the one of your hosts of this mighty podcast is now paying $4.99 to be here.
Are you kidding me?
Appreciate me. Yeah,
wow.
Skype credit. Yeah.
Man,
so,
man.
Don't ever say I'm not dedicated.
Yeah, no way. I don't know if I've ever paid to be on a podcast. Ask Mark Radulich, the guy that funds this network, solely does it by himself. I feel so bad because I've never offered the man a dime.
Right. Me either. I'm still paying for podcast hosting, even though we're not recording.
Oh,
so it's delightful all around right now. I'm
poop in a group.
Money.
You're gonna have to get that poop in a group.
Listen, shut up. But I love the title that you have given tonight's show.
Now here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
What was it, last week or the week before when we did
Spider-Man?
What was the one the Spider-Man one, and you had done the promo work and everything, and I just totally neglected to even see it to see exactly what I should call it. So this evening I was like, certainly he went out and promoted the show in some way so I can figure out what title I could give it. I found nothing. I was like, okay.
Nothing.
Well.
Yeah. It was a busy day today, and I couldn't get to it. And
that's all right.
You know how that goes.
It fits in, I guess.
Some sort of military show, some kind.
Something or other. Something like that.
It fits. So. It's Military Week here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, and I will take over here for Jesse Starcher and let him rest a little bit because he hasn't done a solo podcast in a long time, I don't think.
That's the truth.
Do you remember why you gave those up now?
I I don't know if I ever did one. I may have done one on the network live alone, but I know originally when I started out with source material, I was like, okay, I will do this by myself so long as I can edit it later, and that way if I sound like an idiot, I can have control over it somewhat. When you go live and you are by yourself, if you start to fall in that like idiot hole, which can happen sometimes, you just get distracted or whatever.
I live in that hole.
It's like you're sometimes it's hard to escape, and that stuff is out there live for everybody to listen to. So
yeah,
this might be a first for me. I don't know. If not, it's been a very long time. I'm glad you made it.
I'm sure you did wonderfully. Oh, I am too. As I said, don't ever say that I'm not dedicated to this show, because I am. And it's it's Military Week here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, and so we've had several military themed shows. One of them being source material in its Sergeant Rock episode, which we were both. It's your show, and now I am so happy to have been a part of that. And in fact, I need to read more Sergeant Rock.
We learned some
comic
stuff.
book. I mean, So, and then they Debut Hollywood did reviewed Dunkirk, which I've heard is a really good movie. And then Metal Hammer of Dooms did some stuff that had nothing to do with the military.
That's right.
Which, there's not many military metal albums out there to my knowledge.
Yeah, you can find a handful. I mean, there's nothing out there that's strictly dedicated to the military. Something like Sabaton. I mean, you can find. Now, here's the thing. I mean, if you want to just go with a pinpoint focus on military, like for the U.S. or World War I forward, when you start branching it out across a vast range of time, well, there's plenty of pirate metal, as we know, plenty of that out there. And I think it was Michael K. Easton from Kapow who made sure to share the Viking metal that apparently is making its way about. I think it was Viking metal. So interesting. Yeah, there's you can find it. It's just Mark had to find out how bad the In This Moment album was, and guess what? It didn't let us down.
Pretty darn bad.
Pretty bad. It was not great.
Yeah. Was not great. Would not recommend. He tagged me in something on Facebook, and I did not allow it on my feed because of the content of what he shared of the name of the song. And I was like, Mark, I like you. I consider you a dear friend, but that's going nowhere in near
keep me out.
What,
Yeah, I had the unfortunate disposition to be discussing as to whether Polyps, Lips, and Anus was one song or two. That's a fun conversation to have.
That's a conversation I never want to be a part of. But so I thought we'd go in here and talk a little bit about and join in on Military Week, because when you think, given our history of a pop culture, nerd culture, whatever you want to call it, podcast, a lot of our stuff can be military based. We think of the things that we like, the things that we have talked about in the past, and I know that you and I have brought up a couple of different subjects that have to do with the military, and with being G.I. Joe and a few other things like that. But when you really look deep into it, I mean, man, the 80s, that was absolutely filled with military and war kind of cartoons and comic books and TV shows and things like that. And when I was a kid, man, one of my favorite things ever was visiting my cousin because he had some awesome toy guns back in the day. And he had an M16. He had I remember a 1911 45 caliber 1911 toy gun, of course, and just different things like that. And we would play G.I. Joe. I remember building my own Uzi out of wood.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
oh, dude, if you picked up a stick that had a little bit of a branch off of it, you could hold it like a gun handle. It became a gun.
Absolutely.
All the time.
Yeah. So, and then even the things that weren't that we could link different things to the military. Like I know we talked about on the Revolution shows of of source material. We talked, it was G.I. Joe, it was Transformers, and it was Mask, and a few other Micronauts, and it was Brom Space Knight. But if you look at three of those that I can think offhand right away. Oh, and Action Man, even though he was in Action Man in that comic, he didn't do a whole lot of anything.
No, he did not.
You got, Action Man was a military-based figure. Then you had G.I. Joe, of course, is the military elite anti-terrorist team from back in the 80s, and his roots spawn back in the 60s where he was, G.I. Joe. And there's a lot of, different, what GI stood for, like general issue, grunt, government issue, things like that. So I'm going to look real quick, too, while I'm talking to see what GI actually stands for. And it's a shame that I don't know that.
I'm thinking general issue, but I could be completely off. GI and G.I. Joe. He's a real American hero.
American hero.
Government.
Ground infantry.
Oh, you.
And G.I. Joe stands. Yeah.
I'm on dictionary.
Hey.
I'm on dictionary.com. Hold on. Dictionary.com.
Now, I mean, of course, it could stand for something different, in actual military terms.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and then it does in G.I. Joe because G.I. Joe is, fictional. It was a comic book. It was a toy. And it was also, a cartoon.
Are you serious?
Shut up. Why I ought to starcher. So we've got, G.I. Joe. Then you look at Mask. Mobile
armored.
Oh, jeez. Mobile Armored
Strike Command. Yep.
Which, tell me they aren't government, funded in military, they were part of the military. And then you've got Transformers. Transformers were they were all part of the military.
Mm-hmm.
They were part of the military on Cybertron. So you look at it, and I realized, man, a lot of that stuff that we did as a kid, I wanted to be a soldier, fighting out on the, for America and fighting for what's right and everything else. So, was that big in your play? As you played as a kid, or took on different roles as a child, and things like that.
Yeah, me and you. We had similar childhoods. I know we've talked about it a lot on here.
Yeah.
I was always playing guns or doing something. I grew up though. I was a lone child, so only child, at least for a while. And then when my sister was born when I was 10, and so I was, when she was old enough to like play anything like that, I was 15, 16 years old, getting a car and ready to, almost ready to get out of the house shortly thereafter. So, the only friends I really had that I could play with was maybe around the house, anybody that was around the house, and that was like maybe one or two people, if that, sometimes. But I can tell you that I can remember clearly playing a ton of G.I. Joes on our commentary. I don't know if it was on the commentary or if when we were talking the big crossover with Revolution.
Oh, we also did. Yeah, we did a commentary on G.I. Joe the movie recently as well.
Hasn't dropped yet. Has not dropped yet. I think what it will be doing is it will be dropping tomorrow. No, that's fine. I mean, you're promoting it. You're promoting it right now, which is perfectly fine. It's happening this week. It just hasn't dropped yet, but be ready. But yeah, I mean, that was playing G.I. Joes was the thing for me. They were the most affordable figure I could get a hold of. But now, Mark asked a question in that commentary, and I answered it, but I don't know if I can't remember if you did or not. But he asked if G.I. Joe influenced me into wanting to join the military.
Yeah, I remember that question.
The answer to that question probably came that Monday night when me and you did source material on Sergeant Rock. And that was, the big crux of that whole issue was that, well, one of the talking points of that whole issue was about, between murder and killing for war. And we had a great discussion about that. But
yeah, that was a lot. Yeah, that was pretty heavy.
I think my nature was I was okay playing and fantasizing with the figures and not, but stepping into the shoes and taking a weapon and shooting at somebody was, they in no way influenced me into wanting to do that in real life.
Right.
I knew the difference between real life, somebody dying and me possibly killing them versus me having a good time and acting out a story. I was all about that. Man, I'm trying to think if I ever got into any trouble. Nowadays with my kids now and all the stories that we hear about kids getting shot who have guns that were not actual guns and stuff like that. That's a lot more prominent now than obviously when me and you were growing up and you could transform Megatron into a Luger and then run around and pretend to shoot somebody and not have to worry about getting shot yourself, My kids, I think it was just within the last week or two, we were leaving the house and Caleb has this gun and he looks at me, he's like, can I take this with me? I'm like, we are not taking any guns in the car. Said, I don't care if it looks like it, if it got pooped out of a neon green's lime's butt. I don't care what color it is. Whatever.
Right.
If we're going to go down the street and you're going to pretend to point it at people, I don't want to have to deal with the fact that somebody could, for some reason, think it's a real gun and then turn around and do something stupid.
And yeah, exactly.
Now, around the house, I have no problem with it. But, we have neighbors just across the street who, when Caleb went over there and was pretending to, he was pretending to shoot their kid with his gun. He's like, and of course they were playing, it wasn't anything in any way, shape, or form had any type of malice behind it. They were just playing a fun game, but their parents were not too keen on that one. Not too keen at all. And we talked about when we did Revolution, Cole Marentet was on there, and he said his parents had big issues with guns in their house. Now, he's a little bit younger than us, but growing up, So now, so that might influence as to whether somebody would play, Army guy or not. But for me, when I was growing up, I would pretend all the time, but I certainly did not want to join the military in order to do this. I remember. I want to tell this story, and then I'll let you talk, man. I promise.
No, you're good, man.
There is a VHS tape out there, and unfortunately, Ronnie, trust me, we have tried to find it. We have tried over and over to find this thing, but I have I had at one point videotaped the stories that my GI Joes were portraying, and
nice.
Yeah, dude. One of them was I was pretending to be a reporter. All right, and so I was the guy behind the camera, and I was like talking about how Norman Schwarzkopf. Can you guess what was hot at the time? Yeah. So I can't remember which GI Joe it was. I do know for a fact that it might have been Dusty, but you know the guy that was in Desert Camo.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I had him on top of the TV, and there was like this hostage crisis, and they were in Iraq, and I was the camera holder, and I was sitting there, I was the cameraman / newsman. I'm bringing it to you live, and I was sitting there talking this, that, and the other. And for years, probably about every 2 years, I'd just pull that out and watch it because it was so entertaining. And it is one of the VHS tapes that either got recorded over or just got lost.
Oh,
but
man.
So to say that the military didn't affect my storytelling, there is no way, man. Did you ever have, speaking of the military in the 80s and 90s, did you ever have any of the Desert Storm Pro Set cards? Do you remember the trading cards?
No. Yeah, I remember those. I just never bought them.
I see them at auctions. Like, I've probably been to a handful of auctions over the past 2 years, and there's been at least 2 or 3 times I've seen either an unopened box or a box of Desert Storm trading cards from Pro Set. But yeah. I mean, not that it's anything collectible to get a hold of, but the war was something that really affected us back in the day, and kids had a way of kind of collecting it in cards even. All
right, Snagglepuss. Oh, I do not look forward to that.
Oh, but, it's happening.
I know. No, yeah. I mean, I come from, kind of a military family. My dad was in the Navy. My uncle was in the Army. My grandfather was in the Army. And then, people ask me, are you going to join? So I seriously, because of that background, I seriously, I think I shared this a little bit. I thought about it. I wanted maybe the Air Force, maybe the Navy, something like that. I wasn't, for some reason, keen on joining the Army, but I wanted to, I thought about, joining up and serving my country.
Sure.
And so my dad said, absolutely not. You're going to college. I went to college, and the rest is history from there. So I think they impacted me more than G.I. Joe, or anything like that did, because having family in the military made it a little more real. I knew it wasn't going to be, fighting on the front lines with Duke and of course, when I was old enough to make that decision, I knew it wasn't going to be anything like that. Mm-hmm. But it kind of made a hair more real, I guess you could say. Having my grandfather was in the military, and he actually, from what I understand, from back then, he suffered a pretty good wound. He had grenade shrapnel in his head. But he was one of those stories of like he came up from a lower rank and impressed everybody and hit a higher rank, and it was one of those things where like, man, that's cool. I want to do that, Yeah. And it didn't work out like that, and I thank God that I'm on the path that I'm on, but it was one of those things was like, what if? But so they impacted me, that decision, of at least thinking about it. Yeah, there we go.
Did you hear that? I'm sorry. I'm trying.
That's all right.
I don't understand why that all of a sudden started playing. I'm actually I'm going on to the network looking for remember our documentary diary that we did, and we discussed, it was it was a discussion about liberating the camps, I think is what it was, the death camps or something. Man, I wish I could remember the name of this. I'm looking for it right now. But I'm sorry that the intro music hit automatically, of course.
That's all right. It's been a while since I've heard that. I miss it.
You miss it.
I miss it. So I'm glad you played it. But just like you as a kid, man, I loved using my imagination and fighting Cobra or fighting, the terrorists or just being the good guy, being the military and being tough and carrying those awesome guns and things like that. Now, I was raised in a house, where we had guns, and I think that played a lot into that culture too. Of there was always hunting rifles or something around the house, and so I would I went hunting with my dad as a kid. So at a young age, he taught me to respect firearms. Don't ever pick it up if I'm not with you. Make sure it's not loaded. Always point it away from anything living unless we're of course hunting. And then if you're going to shoot it, that's when you point it.
Yeah.
And so it was I was kind of not raised in a gun culture, but I was raised around them and made aware of them and what I'm a big believer in. I think it was in the movie Shane. A gun is a tool. It only does what you want it to do, what you make it to do. And so I have that thought in my head that it only does what you want it to do. So, but we're hitting some heavy subjects and getting into that. So we'll kind of leave that alone. But
gun control. What's your thoughts?
There's some political outlooks there, and I am not going into politics on this show. So whatever, I'm not doing it. So
the name, by the way, the name. I wanted to tell you the name. Name of that show that we did. 16 photographs at Ordruff.
Yes. Yeah. That's such an amazing story.
Yeah, it was a good story. Apparently that aired April 6th of 2016. Screaming Boy Productions number 55. You can go back into the archives here on the Radulich in Broadcasting Network. Check that out if you guys are interested. Me and Ronnie go into some pretty good. I think we discussed. We definitely go into depth about my family and your family's military background, and we also discuss what it would take to be somebody in a war. We had a lot of good discussion in there. So that was a pretty rough discussion.
That's
a pretty rough documentary.
Yeah. That's a heavy documentary right there, man. That's some, because that deals with the concentration camp. I guess you could, of World War II, where, So anyway, I loved playing with GI Joes as a kid, and I loved, the military aspect of the whole thing of As a kid, I got into that and I enjoyed it, and I got really intricate, like you said, with the storylines of what happened to what Joe, what they what missions they were on, where they were, and the reason behind this, I'm going to tell you how far I went. I went so far as to getting a shoebox. The Joes that I didn't really play with a lot, of course you had your Cobra troopers and Destro and Cobra Commander and things like that. They always pulled through. Duke always pulled through every battle, every mock scenario and all that. every scenario I had, every war that was fought, Duke and Flint and a few others, they always made it through. They were because they were some of my favorites.
Mm-hmm.
Quick Kick for some reason always made it through. I don't know why. It seems like he would have succumbed to the elements of, because he never wore shoes.
My feet.
But so some of the Joes I never used, I actually got a shoebox, and I went out into beside the house where we had loose soil, and I lined them up after a big battle in the shoebox. And the ones who were not lucky enough to make it through were
buried them
in the shoebox.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And so we would set up intricate war, battlegrounds and things like that with the tanks and the airplanes and everything else, and they made it. The planes always made a special, the drops and the bombs and never really did the dog fighting or anything like that as a kid, but we definitely dropped a few bombs and things like that. But the reason I did that was there was this movie, and this movie featured Fred Savage as a kid, and it was called The Boy Who Could Fly.
Okay.
And his thing was he had this massive G.I. Joe collection that he always played with, and he would bury them in the yard. But he would bury them and not go get them. I would go get them, overnight or whatever. I would go get them, but he wouldn't go get them. They were dead. They were gone. They were, that was it. He would have funeral for them or whatever. And I think it was because in the story his dad was in the military or something like that. His dad passed away, and that was his way of coping with it. And he had to run out one night in the middle of a storm, and the storm was going to wash him away, so he had to run out and grab them. And it was crazy. So I was like, beyond that, I was like, this is a fantastic way to play with these things. Because it was like one of those things where it's a little morbid now that I look at it. But it added a little more depth to playtime with these G.I. Joes, these figures. So it was, the question I'm getting at, gracefully here is, how far into your storylines did you get? You obviously pretty far because you.
Oh yeah. That was probably the biggest production I ever had, though. I mean that.
Yeah.
That was probably about it. One of the, when it comes to war stories or things like that, it was usually one or they were. I wasn't too deep into them. I could tell you that most of what happened was just it was very, very much influenced by science fiction. So
okay, yeah,
For example, I'm looking right now. I'm seriously looking right now at a picture that Justin Thomas, our good buddy, the Invisible One, posted on Facebook 8 minutes ago. Okay,
right.
He gets in there and he always finds some good sites to post some stuff from. Always dealing with some great 80s stuff. This picture I'm looking at is apparently it's got to be from some catalog because it's got numbers by the toys. But we got the General Lee up there, and then down here at the bottom we got General Lee from Dukes of Hazzard. Yes.
Dukes of Hazzard. Okay, yeah.
Yep. And then down at the bottom we have Kit and Michael Knight. Nice. That little vehicle there, I remember that vehicle. But in the middle here, is the A-Team van. And somehow
I always wanted that as a kid.
I got a hold of that somehow at a yard sale or something. And the cool thing about the A-Team van was like the top came off, so you could set the guys down inside of it, and then put the perfect though for the 3 3/4 inch, or is it 3 1/4 or 3 3/4? Can't remember. I want to say 3 1/4.
3 3/4. Yeah, 3 1/4.
3 3/4. It's perfect for those size figures. So anyway, I can remember instead of the DeLorean, it was the A-Team van, and Cobra Commander ended up going back in time, and I had the 2 Cobra Commanders. I had the metal face one and the hooded one, and the Cobra Commander. Yes, now when I say the hooded one, I'm talking about the black hooded one. There was a that had the plastic hood
blue,
on it.
There was
a blue.
Okay, yeah.
I think you're thinking of. This was that was way before. So this was obviously a reissue like later on down the line. But anyway, what I would end up doing is Cobra Commander would go back in time accidentally somehow in the A-Team van, and he would encounter himself. And he would talk to himself. So I always had these weird signs. So if you want to say I got into it, I did. I mean, I would get into it and be like, okay, he's going to go back in time, and this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. So I loved being able to do that, because it was I mean, Ronnie, I don't think you have a brother, right? I know you've talked about your sisters.
No, I do not. Yeah.
You have one sister or two?
One sister.
Just one. So you didn't have somebody there to play G.I. Joes with you. And
not at all.
That was me, man. I was sitting there. I can remember it's summertime. Things were different back then. My mom and my stepdad would go to work. I stayed home by myself throughout the summer.
Nice.
And it was either 1 o'clock rolls around. It's either Golden Girls and 227. Reruns of Golden Girls and 227.
right.
Or I want to sit there and I'm gonna pull out the G.I. Joes and play with them. But man, dude, you talk about burying your guys. Mine, I didn't really do a whole lot of that. But I can tell you that I would take my guys and I'd throw them in a cup of water, and then I put that cup of water in the freezer.
Oh, brother, let me tell you, I was king of the frozen G.I. Joes.
Yes, and somebody had to go unthaw them or unthaw them.
Yeah,
somebody had to go thaw them out and bring them out of there, and you gotta. Oh my gosh, you're reliving Captain America or whatever in your head, but dude, I could run down through. I think some of the funnest times I had though with my Joes, and this is a little off topic because I know we're supposed to be doing something war related, but G.I. Joes are war related, so that works.
Yeah.
I know I've told you I've had the
related.
Fed. Yeah. The Federation. I had some type of G.I. Joe Federation, and when it comes Wrestling Federation, I should say. And I could tell you that coming home after school, I would pull out the G.I. Joes. I'd watch was World Class Championship Wrestling, was that the Texas-based one with the Von Erichs? So
I would believe sit there, so, yeah.
I would sit there and watch the Von Erichs or USWA or something on ESPN at 4 o'clock, and sit there and have a wrestling fed and do of course who was the champion and who was the biggest heel of them all. Nemesis Enforcer.
Well, of course. I mean,
of course. Never could get my hands on a Sergeant Slaughter figure. He would have been fun to have back when I was a kid.
Man, I had a Sergeant Slaughter figure.
Was it a mail away or was it a
lot of battle? No, it was a reissue. Later on, as I was getting a little older and a little, so it was. It wasn't a mail away. I don't think it was the mail away. I had the fridge.
I was going to say the fridge was mail away. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
See, I've got to look this stuff up, but I know that Sergeant Slaughter. I think the first run of him was a mail away, and then the next generation that came out, you could buy him.
Yeah.
Oh man. G.I. Joe. I'm looking it up just to see if the fridge was a mail away, because I'm pretty sure he was.
Oh, the fridge was definitely a mail away.
He was the first,
Yeah.
he was. Oh no, way! I'm sorry. The first boy, I think something way before that was. Yeah, it says first available as a order from Hasbro Direct in '87, available through '88, and then again in '89. So you could buy them, I guess, after that. But if you had if away, I never could do the mail-aways. I always wanted to, but I never could. Just because you had to have like a bunch of proof of purchases, didn't you?
Yes.
Okay.
You had to do something. My mom had to do something for me. Yeah,
Give me this figure,
much.
Mom.
She's like, son, all right.
All right.
But yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about G.I. Joe. We've touched on some heavier stuff with the military and how it impacted us and things like that. But I just want to talk about the G.I. Joes for a second.
Sure.
G.I. Joe, huge part of my childhood, right? Huge part of your childhood. You had a good collection of those as a kid. I did as well. As we went along, they became a little more based in science fiction as the G.I. Joe collection went along. And I know that was right up your alley. And you loved that because, they had a lot of things based in science fiction. We had G.I. Joe the movie, which was, they were in Cobra Law, this fictional, of course fictional, but this place where, Cobra Commander originally came from. He was some sort of mutant snake person hybrid. That was, as we went along, it got a little more fantastic, a little more fantasy-based, science fiction-based. When I remember when it first started out, it was just, military. It was just, G.I. Joe versus the terrorist organization Cobra. And I remember watching that first run as a kid. They had that multi-episode, kind of almost a movie. Duke was, captured, and, he had to go to the Cobra base. He was, if he didn't go along with what they wanted, they had this like gold band on his head, and they would, fry his brain or whatever they would do, and he had to escape the clutches of Cobra by the glider, and they had the bats, and they had to gather up all these crazy elements and all. It was like one of those things where I was like, "What is this madness? This is magnificent," kind of a deal. And I was just enthralled as a child, and I was just like, "This is wonderful." What what is happening right now? And it was just one of those things where, like, even back then, I remember the Cobra. I mean, the Cobras had the lasers, but in those first few episodes, the G.I. Joe guns made machine gun sounds, and they threw out the empty casings and things like that. And as you went along, they became lasers. You had the good guys had the red lasers, the bad guys had the blue lasers. They always referred to Cobra's equipment as junk. Why do we have to use this piece of junk Cobra equipment? I'd rather have my own rifle, blah, blah, blah. I remember silly things like that. But as a kid, or even now as an adult, that we can appreciate it, were you a bigger, and I know the answer to this, but I just want to ask it anyway, were you were a bigger fan of the more sci-fi version of G.I. Joe than you were the true, truer to military, cartoon G.I. Joe, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, I don't know. I mean, Serpentor and all that stuff that kind of came after that, where, we had the snakes. I don't know if we watched the movie, okay? I'm stammering and stuttering here. We watched the movie, and there was so much, crazy stuff that was going on in that show. But I can remember distinctly being kind of not taken aback, but kind of like, man, I don't know about Cobra Commander turning into a snake.
A giant snake, yeah.
Yeah, it felt like it was reaching a point where unbelievability.
Was it jumping the shark for you?
Yes. There's a point where you're just like, okay, this is kind of becoming more unbelievable. Maybe that's why I liked G.I. Joe in the first place, was because it felt real. It felt like, okay, we're not pushing the boundaries too much with some, high tech vehicles, some laser guns, and these cool looking outfits. What spoke to me was the characters of each unit. We got G.I. Joe, we have Shipwreck, we have Roadblock. Those characters spoke to me more than crazy stuff happening. I love the Nemesis Enforcer. I love some of those guys that happen. But I can remember, maybe that's why the movie the G.I. Joe movie felt less memorable to me than the Transformers movie did. Because Transformers, we were already in that world. Giant robots, crazy war, and they didn't go to anything too far-fetched. I mean, a giant planet-eating...
Yeah.
I mean, a giant planet-eating robot, okay, maybe, but still, it's still a robot that's sentient. We're not talking snake people here. We're not talking Rise of the Reptilian
They
Regime.
didn't go...
Shout out to Scar Symmetry.
Yeah. They didn't go completely against, the grain of what their bread and butter.
Yeah. I would rather deal with humans or modified humans in some way. Destro, I mean, his freaking face was he was just a chrome-looking face guy.
Right.
Oh, I still could handle that better than Cobra Commander turning into a big snake guy. I don't know why. And
well, his whole thing was that was a punishment passed down from his through his family, wasn't it? And then, that's why it came from his family, and it was one of those things where they, all of them wore it, and so he just continued on the tradition of him having that mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it even went as far as at one time he changed to a gold mask. And
I think I remember a little bit of that.
Yeah, and he carried a sword and things like that. And it was like a Scottish heritage thing. And
hey, we have a caller apparently.
We do have a caller.
We do. Area code 304. Who do we got?
I know who this caller is.
Do you really need to introduce me that way every time?
Yes.
Caller 304. I'm just going to say that's what I've been reduced to. Caller 304.
Caller 304. Oh, hey, we're talking G.I. Joe here, Adam. Let's hear.
I've been in. I've heard like the last maybe 3 to 5 minutes of it. So,
I was going to say.
So where are we at? What are we talking about?
Did you play with G.I. Joes as a kid?
I did. I had the original Snake Eyes. So I traded them.
No.
Mm.
Don't go
I traded
crazy.
You know what I traded them for? I traded them for an original Darth Vader, like from the 70s, original 1970s Darth Vader action figure with the lightsaber you push out of his arm completely.
Okay. That's probably
forgivable.
Yeah. We'll probably let that one slide.
And it was one of those things like my Snake Eyes was played with, man. It was played.
He was all loose.
Yeah.
Loosey goosey.
Yeah. It was like those little like stick figures on the end of the piece of wood that you put on your knee. Like when you tap your knee, it flops around on it.
Yep.
The dancing figures.
It was the question I have for you though.
Yeah.
Did he have his entire crotch, or did part of it break off?
Yeah, he did. And that's funny you mentioned that because I had
what I'm
quite
referring
a few.
To, though, right?
Yeah, I had quite a few G.I. Joes. I had a lot of G.I. Joes. I say a lot. I probably had 50. And I feel like 50 is a whole lot, But Yeah, a lot of them were missing their crotchal area.
Did you end up keeping?
Crotchal?
Did you end up?
I guess,
did you end up keeping any?
No, they are long gone.
Okay.
And I know a lot of them are buried in my parents' backyard because we had a swing set back there, and I would dig holes and I would build GI Joe bases. I probably had 4, but they were like, one of them was like 12-inch holes, and I tried to draw like tunnels between them and stuff. So they're
nice.
They're there somewhere.
Oh, dude, when it snowed, that
They
was
gone.
prime GI Joe playing time. You just hope you didn't lose your figure and then have your dad or stepdad running over with a mower come springtime after you forgot about it out there. Beachhead, by the way,
your GI Joes
fell prey to the mower. Beachhead fell prey to the mower, and it wasn't even my Beachhead.
Lady J.
Yeah. Oh man.
I don't think I ever had Lady
fell prey
J.
to the mower.
Sad stuff.
I don't think I had. And I can't remember all their names because there were so many of them and they changed. But I can't remember. I don't think any of mine got the mower.
Did anybody
I played with mine though.
Did anybody tie theirs
What?
to bottle rockets?
Yes, I did actually. And the
I did not.
bottle rocket would go about 5 feet off the ground because it was too heavy and it would just explode.
Yep. That's exactly
what
right.
What I tried to do was who's the guy that had like a rocket pack where he has that crazy helmet, a weird helmet, and he has a mustache. I can't remember his name. But
Major Blood?
Did
he have a patch or there was Major Blood had the patch, and then there was Dr. Mindbender had a mustache. He was completely bald, had a monocle. But you said, was there a mask?
No, there's a helmet. Let me see if I can find a
Major Blood.
I'm thinking Major Blood.
Major Blood had a
maybe
helmet. He had like a mechanical arm that was black.
Major Barrage, maybe.
That's not even a character.
I never heard of Major
According
Barrage.
to Wikipedia, it is. He's the artillery commander. Although he came out in 2005, so no, that's not who I'm talking about. But anyway, I strapped like 5 or 6 bottle rockets on the back of this dude's back, and thought they'd like fly off. No, he just exploded.
Oh no!
Yeah, they don't fly very far.
No, they don't.
But
they're a lot heavier than you might think.
That was the point where I felt really bad as a kid. I was like, I don't think I should do that anymore with my GI Joes because my parents buy these for me.
Yep.
So why am I destroying them?
That's why I never did anything like that. I was always afraid I was going to destroy it, and then there was no way if I blew my GI Joe up and then had to go tell my mom, hey, I need another GI Joe because I just blowed it up, I'd never get another GI Joe. Ever.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Because, well, son,
absolutely
you can't
not.
obviously take care of your toys and you're playing with fireworks.
I just didn't tell my parents. I just lost them because I knew I would never get another one. I just said,
I'm from West Virginia, so fireworks were a normal thing for me to play with. So.
Homemade fireworks. Are
there any other
thing? Yeah, actually there are. They're called ballistic missiles.
But so we had we're going to switch gears. I mean, Jesse and I we talked a little heavy, if the military, how it affected our, family, if we had family in the military and how G.I. Joe may have affected our thoughts on the military and stuff like that. So we're not going to do that. We're going to have fun with this. So at one time, I know that Jesse and I talked about the lamest G.I. Joe figures. And we had some doozies. I mean, that is the absolute truth. And so what was that one character that you knew you had that you just absolutely thought was the lamest? Like, why in God's name did G.I. Joe make this character? What were they even thinking? Can you remember having a toy like that?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Jesse. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so you're saying we're strictly staying with G.I. Joe. What's the lamest G.I. Joe that we had?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think personally, man, I don't know, because I know I've told you I would turn around. If they were lame, there was nothing saving them from the screwdriver and the re-rubber band treatment. In other words,
right.
I'm taking that screw out of the back, I'm disassembling said G.I. Joe, and then I'm reassembling something I think that looks cool. And believe it or not, there were some times when you took a couple apart and put them back together, or you Frankensteined a bunch of them. Some would look cool, and some of them would look extremely awkward. But the one that I think is the lamest, and probably the one I've actually owned the most of for some strange reason, just by sheer accident, and that's the Crimson Guard. The Crimson Guard was the Crimson Guard, the red.
No
the
way,
red,
they were the coolest, man.
I'm sorry, but the no-named, Cobra Soldier. There was not really too many no-name G.I. Joes. There were plenty of no-name Cobra Soldiers. Cobra Bats. The Bat was pretty damn cool. I love the color scheme of the Bat.
Black and yellow.
Yeah, loved it. And black and yellow. But the Crimson Guard was just
in my mind is because I watched the trailer for the Batman Lego movie, and they played that in it.
The Crimson Guard was just there, completely red, a little bit of black. I didn't like it. I did not like it.
Really? Oh.
Not my favorite.
Well, the Crimson Guard were the elite, though, man.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, that's why they were the Crimson Guard.
You can be as elite as you want and look stupid. You're going to still look stupid, and you're not going to impress me. Do you remember? Now, here's the thing.
What?
It's been a while since we've watched the show. I know that.
Uh-huh.
But do you remember any, great G.I. Joe episodes that involved the Crimson Guard?
I don't remember one episode that involved the Crimson Guard, to be honest.
Yeah, dude. We were watching the movie. The Crimson Guard showed up for a second in the beginning and got their butt handed to them. The Crimson Guard certainly wasn't in the movie too much. So I think I'm perfectly safe in saying that they stink.
All right. So my love for the Crimson Guard aside, that is your choice.
I'm going with that. I mean, I could go with the only other one I could think off top of my head was a blue. There was another Cobra Trooper, completely blue, silver face helmet, and I was not a fan of that guy either.
Trooper.
He looked like an idiot. So Cobra Troopers suck, apparently. There were some cool Cobra guys, though. Again, Crocmaster. Oh my gosh, was that an awesome concept.
The ice cream. There was an ice cream dude, wasn't it? There was like an ice cream something.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, and I remember seeing it and thinking, I don't want that one. That one's dumb. That and there was another guy that had a video camera, like his weapon was a video camera or something. I can't remember all of this stuff. I can't remember half this stuff, but those are the ones I remember. That and Sergeant Slaughter. I never thought you're going to hate me for this, but I never thought Sergeant Slaughter fit in the G.I. Joe universe. I always thought he was a wrestler and he should stay with wrestling. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Oh, boo! Now, Ronnie Adams, that one you're sending me, I don't think that's that guy.
Yeah.
I'll find a picture. I'll send it to you here.
Okay. So the bats were the robots, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the Cobra Viper were also like the elite troops of G.I. Joe as well. That's one of Slaughter's Marauders. One of those guys was a Viper back in the day, and he defected to the G.I. Joe side. I remember that.
There was a lot of them that did that, wasn't there? There was like a whole series, like a whole like story arc where like a lot of them defected to Cobra.
I don't remember that.
Or maybe it was the other direction. Maybe it was the other direction.
It was the other direction because no Joe, self-respecting G.I. Joe would ever defect to Cobra.
Yeah, I was going to say I know you're thinking of probably. I mean, vice versa is Storm Shadow. That's the one I can think of off the top of my head. Who was
maybe that was Storm Shadow.
Yeah, he was originally Cobra, defected and went over to G.I. Joe. I don't know if he defected or whatever he did. But it was Cobra to G.I. Joe. I don't know if
they had that whole ninja thing going on, and I never really understood that.
Code of Honor.
Yeah, well, no, I understand the Ninja Code of Honor, but that whole storyline between him and Snake Eyes was confusing as a kid.
Snake Eyes.
Yeah, but so Adam, what was the lamest G.I. Joe that you owned?
Oh gosh, the lamest.
Mm-hmm.
See, I don't. I always found a reason. I played with mine, so it was like I always found a reason for them to be in existence. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like Raptor, I thought was kind of goofy looking. You know, he had like a cape or whatever that got lost in the first 3 minutes of me having it.
Right.
You know,
right.
I mean, as far as like just goofy looking or like useless. Okay, I got one. Who was the guy? And I can't remember his name. He was like the computer dude, and I always found him useless because they didn't really use computers back then. They only his only job was to like use a computer. He didn't even really hack a computer because that wasn't like a big deal back then. But he had
mainframe.
Is that his name? That sounds about right.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. I could not remember what it was. I knew it was like an old computer term, but like
you say mainframe
or something.
Mainframe.
Let me look him up.
I had mainframe as a kid, and I found a new respect for mainframe because I read G.I. Joe comic books as a kid, and in the comic book, it was Dusty and Mainframe were in the desert somewhere. And they picked up this kid.
With the camera. Sorry, go ahead.
They picked up this kid, and he idolized Dusty. You know, this kid, they were in the Middle East somewhere, and this kid was like, couldn't understand what the use of Mainframe was. He thought he was.
I never understood
it. He was like, I don't know why he's here. I don't like him. He's not a warrior like you, Dusty. So there's no use for him. And he's like, oh, so you think you think there's no use for Mainframe? Mainframe's like, yeah, no big deal, whatever. I don't care. You're a kid. Screw you. Kind of attitude. He's like, whatever, all right. And which. When I was a kid, I was like, who is this kid? Who is this guy? I mean, he's, all he does is carry around a daggone computer all the time, and he doesn't really fight.
It was a full-on, I'm looking at this thing, it was a full-on mainframe. Like, it was probably one of those, 300-pound computers. You probably drug it around with him.
Yeah, quote-unquote, was a laptop. But,
yeah.
But and then storyline. I remember. What was it? Dusty and they went to sleep, and Dusty goes out. He says like, yeah, I'll stay here, and I'm going to go out and scout out whatever this is, and so Dusty leaves, and the kid grabs a rifle, and he's like, I'm going to go out and help him. The Mainframe snatches a rifle from him, says, lay down, goes to sleep. Dusty's fine. He's like, you're a coward. Why don't you go out and help him? And he said, just listen. And then you saw, in the distance, this explosion. You hear all this, it puts the machine gun fire and people screaming and all this stuff. He's like, we got to go help him. He's like, just chill out. And all of a sudden, Dusty comes back with all these rifles on his back. He killed everybody and took their weapons.
Oh,
and he
dang.
brought the weapons back. He said, one of them lit up a cigarette. Nasty habit. I could smell it from however far away it was. And then he went to sleep, and so they got ambushed in the middle of the night, and they knocked Dusty out, and so the kid was sitting there, with his hands behind his back, and Mainframe starts begging for his life, and he's like, please don't kill me. I'll lick your boots. I remember this. He said, I'll lick him. I'll clean him real good. I'll lick him. And he was like, you're a pig. I can't believe this. You're such a coward. Why are you doing this? And the guy reared back his foot like he's going to kick Mainframe in the face. And Mainframe says, yeah, that's right. Go for the kick. And he went to kick, and he grabbed the guy's foot and, took his legs out from underneath him, knocked the other guy out, and was just this, bad soldier, and and took them both out. And the kid was like, who are you right now? He's like, man, I don't have to fight unless I have to, but I know how. And I was like, okay.
Nice.
I like Mainframe now. It's like one of those things where like, yeah, he's cool. So I had a respect for him after reading that comic book. So he always, he always survived. So, but Mainframe, but for face value, as a kid, yeah, Mainframe was pretty lame.
I found the guy that has the video camera. He has the dumbest name in the world. Scoop.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, I remember Scoop.
Wait. I was legitimately just looking at a Wikipedia that is based off of a real person. Give me a second. I'll pull it up.
So lame, maybe? I don't know.
Well,
like
give me a second. I'll find it. Go ahead. Keep talking.
While you're looking for it, but his sole purpose was to record the action on VHS, probably as it happened.
Beta.
That means the Joes have their own PR team. Oh my gosh! And the last comment to this is so funny. How many times do you think Sergeant Slaughter walked up and broke a couple of tapes to keep the dirty beads off the record?
Nice. All right, you guys.
Man.
Here we go. List time. Okay, real quick. I'm on Wikipedia. This is G.I. Joe action figures modeled after real people. Now we're just going to stick with.
Ooh.
Yeah, we're just going to stick with the 3 3/4. The small figures.
Okay, yeah.
Because they do have a lot. Believe it or not, they have a lot of the 12-inch, like such as Buzz Aldrin, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Those are actually modeled off of somebody. But for the real American hero, okay, here we go. We have G.I. Joe character by the name of General Iron Bear. General Iron Bear. Based off of Hasbro Toys global brand manager, vice president Daryl DePriest. Okay, nobody we know. 2005 FHM contest winner, which is a character by the name of Red Zone. Luke Ellison is the real name of that person. All right. Now this should come as no surprise. And you may have even mentioned this. I don't know, but released as the G.I. Joe character Tunnel Rat. Do you know who that is based off of?
No, but I always liked Tunnel Rat. But who is he?
Tunnel Rat is based off of Larry Hama, probably the same person that wrote that G.I. Joe comic book that you're referring to. So
what?
Larry Hama wrote a lot of G.I. Joe. We have G.I. Joe character by the name of Sneak Peek, who is actually Stephen King's son, Owen King. That's who it's based off of.
You're kidding.
Okay. Yeah. Shortly a while back, I shared an article where they had talked about Stephen King created a character for G.I. Joe. So
he did. Crystal Ball.
Yeah, there you go.
I had him.
G.I. Joe fan club president David S. Lane has a figure by the name of Surefire. All right, now here we get to the one that Adam's talking about. G.I. Joe character Scoop, modeled off of NBC Today correspondent Mike Leonard. So yes.
Lame.
It's still dumb.
There you go. There you go.
That guy probably saw. He probably was a war hero when he was making fun of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
No, you never know. Wait a second. Was he the one that got killed?
Oh,
Now I'm
geez.
starting to wonder.
Oh,
if
don't tell me that because I said Lane.
No, I don't think he was. At least, okay, Mike Leonard, journalist, born 1947. They don't have a passed away date or anything like that. But in 1989, he was given the G.I. Joe. All right. Okay. Robbie London, executive at DIC Animation, is Rapid Fire. Walter A. McDaniel.
Okay.
Don't know who that is. I have no idea who Walter A. McDaniel is, but that is Rampage. Rampage is modeled off of him. Brian K. Mulholland, 2001 G.I. Joe fan club officer, has a character by the name of Big Brawler. We all know about William Refrigerator Perry, a character by the name of Fridge. The one I just shared on Facebook and tagged Ronnie Adams in, and that is Roddy Piper, has a freaking figure. Yes, he has a figure, and apparently it was a 2005 exclusive.
Remember that.
Friend of the 2007 friend of the show, Pat Mullen, said that he's never seen one less than $500. So
Dang.
that would be something to get a hold of. And then we have Robert Remus. Do you know who Robert Remus is?
I think so.
Yep. His code name for G.I. Joe, Sergeant Slaughter. Yeah,
okay,
we learned something new today, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then Brad Sanders modeled for the G.I. Joe character Big Lob.
Oh, Lord.
We talked about Mark
Big
Radulich's
Lob.
favorite character. Big Lob makes the move. All right. So there you go. That's the end of that list.
That's awesome. That was a great list.
And I don't want to change the subject, but I want to ask a question.
Do it.
Have you talked about how terrible the G.I. Joe Nintendo game was?
I never played it.
You never played that game?
I don't think I have. I gotta go look it. Gotta go look it up.
Terrible.
Now.
Like you can pick between I think Duke and Snake Eyes, and you can be like one or the other. I think there may be a third one. But yeah, but you can like pick between them, and like Snake Eyes could jump really high, and he used like a sword and everything. I think he had a gun too.
Yeah.
But like Duke, he could take like a couple more hits than Snake Eyes. But it was
before going into a coma.
Yeah, it was terrible. And I remember thinking how awful this game is.
You can buy it on eBay for real cheap, complete in box, $299.99.
Good Lord!
Gosh, I rented that one from. There was a little tiny hole in the wall. I think Ronnie always makes fun of the name of the video store in my little hometown. It's called Video Madness. He says it's like from a Kevin Smith movie.
It really is.
But yeah, like even like the logo on it's like all like multicolored, and like the like some of the letters are slanted, so it looks all goofy. But it was called Video Madness. There's a little tiny hole in the wall. I rented, and for some reason I was stuck on Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and I rented that one like every time I went over there. So I rented like a video game and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Weird,
nice.
I know, but yeah.
Real quick,
but anyway,
before we move on, before we forget, because it's fresh in my mind, I want to give you my lamest G.I. Joe figure.
Oh, yes.
And that would be the Dreadnought Road Pig.
Road Pig? No, negative. He is not lame in any way, shape, or form.
Listen,
a cinder block attached to a bat or a pole is a perfectly good weapon.
Against guns. You're not going to win this, Starcher.
Yeah, get Radulich in on this. Call him up.
No. No. I will not, because he'll probably just disagree with me on principle. But no, Road Pig was awful, man.
No.
All these other guys,
No.
Yeah, I don't even remember him having a gun.
Well, I owned a Road Pig, and I think what I thought was one of the coolest parts about the figure was the fact that he stood a little bit taller than the rest of them.
Yeah.
He was a massive dude. He was a massive dude, and I think the only reason I go back to my wrestling fed, he was pretty, he was a massive dude. He was like the Brock Lesnar of the wrestling fed, He was hard to beat.
Only less annoying.
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely. But he was huge, imposing. He was a huge, imposing figure. He was like that. I mean, yeah, I liked him. I thought he was awesome. He had a cool design too. Completely white hair with one red streak, I think, going right through the side. I think it was a red streak. Oh man, that was a fun figure to have.
He was lame.
It reminds me. It takes me back to. I ended up finding a bunch of Street Fighter figures for that G.I. Joe release. Do you remember any of those?
I remember
yeah.
those. I remember those. Yeah, like Ken was awful. He had the weird hair.
I ended up getting a hold of. I had the only other G.I. Joe that I can remember being a little oversized, besides Road Pig, was the Sagat figure. Sagat was huge, and I'm sure Dalsim had to have been completely insane, crazy tall, but I didn't have him. But I had the Sagat figure, which stood a little bit taller than the rest of them. I ended up getting a Sagat, Balrog. Who else did I get a hold of? There were a couple others. Oh, Zangief. I had a Zangief figure, which is I still have that thing. I ended up getting a few Street Fighters. See, here's what happened. I stopped playing with my G.I. Joes and then started collecting them. Right when Hearts. I don't know if did you guys ever have a Hearts down in your area?
No.
Okay. Hearts was a department store similar like Hills. It was a smaller chain before Kmart and Walmart took over the world. So Hearts was closing down, and they were marking everything down. And for some reason, they were just like, let's get rid of these G.I. Joes. And they marked them down an insane amount, like 75% off. So I'm going in there and just be like, okay, I'll take that one. I'll take that one. I'll take that one. I'll take that one. And I ended up coming home with quite a few. Hearts was the first place that I bought like my first ever 32X game because they were clearly marking those down. My Sega 32X
with
games were they're probably the reason Hearts went out of business. But you never know. but I can remember. Dude, Road Pig for life.
No, I disagree, sir.
Hell, I know what I'm posting on Facebook right now.
Of course you are. Anyway, so Road Pig was my lame one. So who was your favorite? Who was your go-to G.I. Joe action figure? The one that always survived, the one that always, that you always had leading the pack. That no matter what, he was up front. He was the leader. He was the guy that called the shots.
Well, I'm trying to think who would normally survive. Outback.
Good call.
Yeah, Outback seemed to be the one that made it through. He was in quite a few of my G.I. Joe storylines or whatever. He always seemed to be like a pretty cool looking figure too. The one I had was the white tank top. It was either a tank top or white shirt that just said survival across. Mm-hmm. It was a T-shirt.
Survival.
That said,
yep.
Yes, that's the dude, man. That was the guy.
Yeah, so good call on that one, man.
He was probably the one that made it through.
I had, he was one of the red beard and the headband and you could just drop him out in the middle of everything and he would come back, he would come back. Period.
Yeah.
He was a cool character, cool figure, man. So, Adam, who was your go-to at G.I. Joe?
Oh, my go-to was always Snake Eyes. Always.
Lame.
I don't know why. I know it is, but the thing is,
I didn't have a Snake
Eyes.
I didn't have a Snake Eyes, so I didn't have the
Eyes.
luxury of making him live.
The luxury. But see, here's the thing about Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes could go from one series to another. So I could have like Snake Eyes and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Snake Eyes and Star Wars, and Snake Eyes and Masters of the Universe. I was that kid who mixed all of my stuff together.
I had issues
I don't know.
with the size. I mean, you can't just throw Snake Eyes in the TMNT world and not have issues with why these turtles are huge.
Forget my
because he's Snake Eyes. He's larger than life, dude.
Larger than life.
Forget my issues with mixing worlds. I'm with Jesse on that, man. I don't think I would be able to.
It's like throwing peas in your mashed potatoes, or in fact, it's like throwing like Jello in your mashed potatoes. It just doesn't make. I get it, but I was that kid. I had a box of action figures, and they were all in there. So I had like the Splinter, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I had the Technodrome. I had the Death Star. All of this stuff was in one big box, and I would create worlds where they all lived and they were all on the same team. I don't know. I mean, Snake Eyes. There were a few Snake Eyes.
I respect it. I was going to say I respect it. I understand and I respect that. Because if anything, these people
that makes me anxious to think about it.
I certainly have. I appreciate a good crossover. I just could not get like the size difference. I didn't like that. Like I could not throw Snake Eyes into He-Man world because He-Man towering over him, and that would bug me.
There weren't a lot of characters that went over to the He-Man world because the He-Man characters did not get played with that often. So I don't know why, but there was a thing about the weird hair. I don't know what it was, but I didn't play with my He-Man characters as often as I probably should have. And they went away in a yard sale one time. So
I just want to.
Sure, you're right for calling the Page Boy haircut weird.
Well, yeah. Well, let me put it this way: those stupid memes, those memes and those voiceovers for He-Man online that you see online on YouTube have ruined He-Man for me. Not only that, He-Man does not age well. The cartoon is not a good. Like, I don't like watching it. Like I thought, oh yes, He-Man. Literally, I sat through the first episode. I forced myself because I was like, oh yeah, He-Man. Come on, do better, He-Man. And I was like, okay, this sucks. This sucks. Like I wanted so bad for this to be my childhood, and I was literally like 10 minutes into it. I was like, He-Man, yeah, come on, and it was over.
It's better left in the better left in the past, dude.
Yeah, I'm not a.
But
I don't know. He-Man was awesome, but
at some point, Adam, we are covering the comic book crossover between He-Man and Thundercats. And from what I actually heard, that is pretty good. So there can be stories written that are decent with those characters. But, Ronnie, did you read it all?
Yes. It was good up until the end, and then it got kind of lame.
Okay. All right.
They switched writers.
Take it from Ronnie.
Did they switch writers?
No, I think this was all straight like just a 6-issue miniseries or something. So I would assume they kept the same writers on there, right?
It was probably all written at the same time, and they just threw the artwork in there. It just sucks at the end.
By the way, Ronnie Adams, Road Pig does not need a gun. All right, when you're Road Pig, you don't need a gun. All right. Just putting that out there. Crossbow. That's all he needs. Actually, a wrist crossbow. He doesn't even shoot it with like a gun. He goes on his wrist and he shoots it. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
Okay,
whatever.
Or maybe I'm looking at a picture, but that's all right.
I knew you were looking at a picture. I was like, there's no way you remember that.
I remembered his red streak in his white hair. At least I got that right.
Yeah, you did.
Road pig.
I guess, real quick, my go-to, Duke. Duke was always my go-to.
Duke?
Yeah. I liked the leaders, man. I did. I would always take the cool weapons from the other guys and give them to Duke, things like that. So Duke was my go-to G.I. Joe that always won, that was always the leader, because he was the leader anyway. And I was like, well, why, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So that's kind of just where I went with that.
I hear you.
But, so it seems like, we talked about, G.I. Joe, we talked about Transformers being part, they were military. Then we talked about Mask, and then just about anything in our childhood, almost anything in our childhood could be, kind of pointed back to some sort of military background, or they had some sort of military influence, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about it, and when I was growing up, there was always something about the military that was on TV, that was movies or anything like that. So real quick, I want to ask a couple of quick questions. Do you all remember the shows that were on TV called China Beach? And do you remember the show? You do, okay. So there was China Beach, and then there was, oh gosh, what was it?
Thunder in Paradise.
Man, I can't. No,
I love that movie.
Live.
I loved that movie. I wanted that boat so bad.
Wow. Tour of Duty. Yeah, Tour of Duty. China Beach was what I remember saying, talking about this a little bit with on the source material episode about Sergeant Rock. But China Beach was it was more like MASH. It was set at a hospital, so it was like a Vietnam medical hospital, military story. And I think it was like a evac hospital, USO center kind of deal going on. And it was
China Beach. Is that what you're talking about?
China Beach, yeah. It was one of those things where, like, I remember my parents watching that, but I don't think I watched it a whole lot because it was like, it revolved around a woman, and she was a nurse.
Yeah, I was.
And
all I know is that I wasn't allowed to watch it, put it that way.
Okay, so I remember that, and I don't remember that. I don't remember your story because that would be weird.
Remember that. Oh, do you now?
Yeah, and it was like the description of it was this: Nurse Colin McMurphy is the principal character, pining for her true love, a married doctor, while dealing with the patients and other personnel at the base in the South China Sea. So I remember that. And I got that mixed up. There was another show that I actually watched, and it was called Tour of Duty. And it was basically, the whole premise of it was young U.S. soldiers depend on one another in Vietnam. So it had a lot of, action in that, a lot of, it was all military. And I remember because the theme song, the opening to it, was Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then they had another like instrumental or whatever. So, pardon me. It ran from 1987 to 1990. So I was a little bit older when it went off, but I was still young enough to remember, to have the G.I. Joe sitting in the room and things like that. So it was one of those things where the military shows like that were a little more up front, a little more say that word for me, Jesse. Prevalent?
What was it? Prevalent? Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they were a little more prevalent back then, in my opinion. So I remember watching Tour of Duty. I remember my parents watching China Beach and being the Vietnam era and things like that. So I think that sparked my interest in the Vietnam War and the weapons and what started it and I was like I said, I was raised in a household. We talked about this. I was raised in a household with guns and stuff like that. So I was always interested in what kind of guns that were being used in different eras and things like that. So I know that in the Vietnam era, the M16 came around, and they still use the 1911, the 45 caliber as a sidearm. They had the M60s, RPGs, things like that, grenade launchers. And then it got me into World War II, where you learned about the Thompson, you learned about the M1 Garand, you learned all the different guns that the German soldiers had, the sniper rifles, things like that. I was really into that, and that was really into that got me into the history of it, different battles, different how this battle affected the entire war, and if they took this one city or if they took this one area or something like that, that would help the U.S. soldier, the U.S. forces or the Allied forces, and things, and then of course when you look at the Vietnam War, you had to look at the politics of the war and how how people were against it, for it, Hanoi Jane, things like that. So that really got me into the history and the study of it. And so I've been a fan of military's TV shows and movies ever since. So these shows and reading about it and kind of studying it opened me up to movies such as Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, of course, things like Saving Private Ryan. But then I also watched Bridge over the River Kwai, things like classics like that, The Dirty Dozen. And then you had the one that Marlon Brando showed up fat and drunk for, that I can't remember the name of right now. I don't know.
Apocalypse
Now. Yeah. And so you had all these different ones, and I guess when you look at it, I really enjoyed watching and learning and seeing different views on it. Whether it was one side of the politics or on the other. So I guess I'm going to say, are you or were you or ever a fan of, military, war? Yeah, I guess you could say war movies, Jesse.
Yeah.
Or TV shows.
Of TV shows themselves, well, okay. Now, if we're going to start with TV shows, probably not. The one that I remember the most of, and I did not like, for some reason, I just wasn't a fan. Thank you very much. Was not a fan.
Yeah, because I wasn't either. No, I wasn't either.
There's a lot of history to that show, but
yeah,
I didn't like it. I mean, when it comes to
I get it.
Yeah, when it comes to the military, what other shows were there? Now, see, this is where I probably need the internet to jog my memory. You mentioned China Beach. Do not remember that at all.
Yeah, there weren't many shows. There weren't many shows about it. There were more.
Okay.
Of course, there's more movies because you can show the grittier side of it, which not China Beach, but Tour of Duty kind of got in there. So I don't remember many TV shows about wartime, other than MASH, which I think MASH was the Korean War, and then you had Tour of Duty, China Beach, and then you had. Those are about the three that that are foremost in my memory. But then you had movies like Platoon. You had Apocalypse Now, Saving Private Ryan, Hamburger Hill.
I just remembered one that I've seen many times, and I've probably watched a few episodes of. That's Gomer Pyle.
Yeah. Right out there, man.
Surprise, surprise, surprise.
Surprise.
Because
Hi there.
As much as we don't want to admit it, it was a big part of military. Wow.
Hey,
wow. That was awesome. That was a tremendous impression. Wow.
You know
really
something.
Was.
Here's something about the guy who played Gomer Pyle. I can't remember his name, but he in real life was a very, very talented opera singer.
Mm-hmm.
No joke.
Oh, I know he's got albums.
Jim Neighbors.
That's right. Yeah. I knew he had released some albums and stuff. Gomer Pyle was on TBS. I used to catch him on TBS and on reruns, and then I'm sure that that was the same station that played those commercials. Check out the 3 album sets. Gomer Pyle sings.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or Jim Neighbors sings. Whatever.
And it was so weird to see him not in his military outfit. Like the olive green and stuff, and the military hat. To see him in a button-down shirt with a sweater over top of it. Resting on his knee, smiling to the camera. So weird to see that.
The weird thing I found about, I always thought about this was, when you think of the military, you've got the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and a lot of people think about the Marines and the grunts in the Marines. That they're first in, last out, blah blah blah. A lot of people in the Army would disagree. Neither here nor there, but a lot of people contribute the Marines for being the toughest branch in the Army. Like I said, I'm not saying that, but that is the general consensus. That it's a tough go in there. But then you got like Navy SEALs, and things like that.
Yeah, Navy SEAls or Army Rangers even.
Army Rangers. I'm not taking anything away from those those schools or those classes in those military, but a lot of people think if you go Marines, man, you're going tough. And Gomer Pyle, it was the actual name of the show was Gomer Pyle USMC.
Yeah,
he was a Marine. Gomer
That's
Pyle,
right.
The guy that was the goofy, Shazam, that guy from Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah.
Decided to go to the freaking Marines. I mean, what in the world? I'm just trotting around Mayberry. I think I'll join the Marines and kill a man,
Gomer Pyle, Delta Force.
Right, exactly.
Oh, that's scary.
Gomer Pyle, it's just like Otis the Drunk joining the SEALs, or, what was Floyd the Barber?
Floyd the Barber?
Ops, yeah, he went.
He
Black Ops.
He ain't gonna
Floyd
make
the Barber
it.
was probably a Navy SEAL sniper. He was probably the original Chris Kyle. Shows
what
up.
we don't realize is that Mayberry was actually filled with all these, former military here, special forces unit.
Barney Fife in his one bullet. He doesn't
That's
all
all
he
needs, man.
That's all he needs.
That's all. There's one bullet because he's going to kill his. His hands are registered lethal weapons, man.
That's true.
So
he was actually who Snake Eyes was modeled off of at one point, and
right.
It was insane.
That's hilarious. That is really funny. Oh God.
There's got to be a meme or something. I'm looking it up right now. Snake Eyes, Don Knotts, happening right now. Oh goodness,
that's so funny. I mean, can you imagine? Floyd? Floyd?
Who they activate when they need to crack military command force?
and then they all show up, and it's like they don't remember what happened like the 2 weeks prior because their minds wiped. You know, I can just see Floyd the barber like shaving someone's neck and just thinking, you know, he nicks their neck, like he nicks their neck and makes them bleed a little bit, walks them back and licks it off the straight razor.
Oh my gosh, it's like this horrible military experiment that's gone wrong. They're just like, okay, stick them all in one town. They're all going on one town. We don't want them to leave, okay? We do not want them to leave.
He sits Otis down, and he starts shaving his neck, and his hand starts trembling. He says, I could do it. I could kill him right here. No one would know.
Yeah.
And Andy is the only competent one, so you know he's the leader. He's the one that the U.S. government has placed there to watch them and make sure they don't get out of line.
Yeah, he's the only one who knows what's going on, and he kind of keeps them all in line, and that's why they never leave.
Yeah, he's got to keep it
that's
all in check.
They're all like, yeah.
You know, that's why he never got.
Here's my question: Where does Aunt B fit in all of this?
She was
clearly she's like. What is James Bond's?
She was British.
What is the one lady from James Bond? She's
MI6.
Yes, she's clearly she's been in it for a while. It's just been Mayberry's been around for a while. Okay, they've been cultivating killers and keeping them there. You know, Floyd was sent there when he was like 22. Look how old he is now. The only reason that's happened has been so successful. Yeah, the only reason it's been so successful is the fact that Aunt B has been there and to help Andy keep things in check for that long a time. But things are breaking apart at the seams.
She's Mayberry's version of Moneypenny.
Oh, yes, there you go.
Moneypenny.
There it is.
There's something in those. Is her code name. Her code name is Aunt B.
There's something in those pies she's always baking too. So everybody goes after Aunt B.
There it is.
Baked goods.
LSD and other psychotropic
LSD or something. So.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Oh my God,
man! I guarantee you, there is a conspiracy theory about. I guarantee you, there's a conspiracy theory about Mayberry being a sleeper town.
We just created it.
Yes,
we
just
did. Created it. Mayberry is actually, you can't really find Mayberry in the U.S. You know, there's Pilot Mountain, but there's no real Mount Pilot. So it was actually probably in Russia somewhere back in the Cold War.
It's like Lost. They're all stranded on this desert island, and they're all like in limbo. They're all. I wouldn't say they're all dead, but I don't want to. I don't want to go that far because it's much more fun. I think this place is probably in the middle of it's probably an underground bunker, that has
No, it's not.
It's
not underground. They can see. They go to the lake. They fish, and that's the lake.
Yeah, but how do we know? How do we know it's not generated? How do we know?
Well,
how do we know?
Well, hold on. The lake in the beginning is where they put the people who don't quite accept the re-education.
That's the way in.
That Mayberry gives them. Yeah. No, that's where they put the people that don't accept. That's where they put the people that don't accept the re-education. That's why That's why he takes Opie down there. He takes Opie down there. He's like, son, if you don't listen to me, one day you may end up here. And they skip a rock and they go home. So. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
If you actually play that backwards, that's what activates the entire town. So
the code word.
Oh man. It's so funny because my wife just started episode 1, season 1 of Alias tonight. All right, and she just started that show. She's like, I'm looking for a good show. I said, maybe you'd like Alias. Maybe that's something you would enjoy. Anyway.
Now that we've butchered,
I can't.
The Andy Griffith Show and all of Mayberry and
butchered. You mean made it better, sir?
Made it better.
Yeah, there you go.
Real quick,
That'd be
just
hilarious.
off the top of our heads. Jesse, what's your favorite military/war movie?
Military/war movie. I'm going to have to go with. I honestly think it's going to have to easily be Saving Private Ryan.
Good call. Adam.
That's the easy one to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the ones that that made me realize that Vin Diesel is a good actor, no matter what people say.
Oh yeah, I forgot he was in that movie.
So that whole good choice, man, because that's just a phenomenal movie all around. Adam, what's yours?
I have two. It's either going to be 13 Hours or American Sniper. One of the two.
Okay.
I can watch those movies. Like those movies to me I can watch those movies like over and over. But I'll take that back.
Yeah.
13 Hours I can watch over and over. American Sniper is really hard to get through. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is.
But those are my two favorite of all those things. I like the story of Chris Kyle and stuff like that. That's a really cool story.
And Jesse kind of took mine, which is okay, because I'm going to go with one that I can quote from probably almost front to back because I've watched it so many times. That's going to be Full Metal Jacket.
Oh, it's a good one. I watched that for the first
time
a couple of years back. But it's good.
It took me probably a couple of years to watch that all the way through because I couldn't get past Private Pyle killing himself. It was just one of those moments where I was like, I can't do this. I can't watch any more of this. It's just, because I just thought back about what if I joined the Marines, that would probably get beat with in pillowcases.
Yeah, this is Vincent D'Onofrio's character, right?
Oh yeah. And
it's good stuff.
Where it was just one of those things where like it's such a hard hitting movie, and everybody in it does so well. Kubrick did an amazing job directing it. R. Lee Ermey was just, gosh, you didn't want him to die, but you kind of wanted to kill him because he was so, but he was trying to make these men, into what they needed to be, because it's a Vietnam War, and they needed to be killing machines at this point. They needed to be soldiers. That's the only way he knew to make them soldiers. And then, he was trying to whip Private Pyle into shape. So when he found the jelly donut in his footlocker, he made him eat it while everybody else was doing push-ups.
Oh.
Hey, what?
What? Who are you talking to, buddy?
We have a small child that had decided to make his appearance at 11:30 at night.
It's all right. It happens a lot on the Radulich Broadcasting Network.
It does.
I just remember on one source material episode where it's like, I just hear Jesse go, "Woodpecker, son. Save woodpecker."
Some things. Oh my goodness, some things I forgot all about. Oh, geez.
He was talking about woodpeckers, but he left the wood off of woodpeckers.
Let me give you the kid story before we depart here. I know we're getting ready to close shop, but I want to tell you the story real quick, okay?
Absolutely.
So my son figures out how to comment on YouTube videos, all right?
That's always a fun day.
7-year-old doesn't know how to read or write the greatest yet. He's working on it. He's going into second grade. He knows how to sound words out. So he finds a video he really wants to leave a comment on, and he brings it to me. He's like, "Dad, check it out. Look, how do I get this to be my name?" I'm like, "You ain't getting a YouTube account. You're crazy." So I look at it, and I realize that he has made a comment on a video of some goofy stuff that he watched, as some guy playing a video game. I think it was Jacksepticeye or something like that. But he wanted to write "like a boss," so he wrote, he put "like a boss" down there. And I looked at it, and I'm looking at it. I said, "What did you want to say here, son?" He said, "Like a boss." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Go have your mom read this to you." He's like, "Why?" Because he wrote "lick a booze." Lick a booze. Lick a booze. That goes out under my name. My name is attached to that comment. Lick a booze. I was like, okay, all right. No, do not do that ever again.
Amazing.
So let me. I have one kind of along the same line.
Let's hear it.
So when I was 4 years old, this is a story of how my parents learned that I could actually read. So when I was 4 years old, what would happen is Mom and Dad, here's Video Madness again. It's another Video Madness story. So when I was 4 years old, we would go to Video Madness, and they would rent a movie, and they would rent a movie for us. Usually it was like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or even G.I. Joe or, some cartoon movie that we could watch, so that they didn't have to sit through this mind-numbing whatever we were watching. But anyway, so they rented us a movie, and they rented The Naked Gun, okay? So that Sunday, I'm in Sunday school. My Sunday school, we used to go around. They would say, what did you do what did you do over the weekend? How did you have a good week? What did you do? And I was like, yep. I was like, we watched a movie, and I can't remember the exact conversation, but it ended like this. My mom and dad rented. They wouldn't let us watch the Naked movie. Okay, in church, couldn't watch the Naked movie. And
that's wonderful.
The teacher there was like, kind of like Ronnie, like, huh. Well, anyway, she goes and confronts my parents and says, Adam said that, you guys, there might be something going on, that you guys might have a naked movie in the house. And my mom was like, what? Gosh. And she said that you rented movies, and one of them was a naked movie. And she's like, I just want to make sure that you're not watching porn in front of your kid. And she was like, oh, no. It's The Naked Gun. And then it was like, oh, everything fell into place at that point. So not only did I rattle my parents for watching filth at home or watching crappy movies, I told them they were watching filth at home. So.
That's wonderful.
That was one of those things that ever since then, it's been, you don't want to show anything to Adam because he can remember it and read it. I can't wait for my kids to want to have a YouTube account.
Yeah, be prepared. Be prepared, sir.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be like, no, you're not getting it.
Dude,
you're not getting one.
I worry every Sunday. My mom takes my son to church, both my sons to church, and I'm just waiting for the day when they come back and they're like, we have a story to tell you. And I'm like, oh, great, here we go.
And they will. And they absolutely will.
Just be ready.
All right. So on that note, Jesse, plug away.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll keep them real quick tonight. We've already talked about the schedule earlier there. So, ladies and gentlemen, go give that Radulich and Broadcasting Network Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts that we have to offer. You can find everything on there, such as wrestling, MMA, movies. We talk a lot of pop culture stuff, all sorts of fun stuff, so you can check that out there. We're on Blog Talk Radio, which is our home. We're on Stitcher. We're on TuneIn. We're on iTunes, and we're also on Spreaker right now, thanks to our good buddies over at W2Mnet.com. Those guys, they are syndicating our content. We're doing vice versa and helping them out as well. So other than that, you can follow me at Stiznarkey if you do so wish. Had a great time tonight, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Adam.
You can find me on Twitter at AdamIsANerd. I have to confess that I've been really bad at social media stuff, so I'll do much better, I promise.
Okay.
Okay. You can find the Screaming Boy podcast on any sort of social media outlet. Facebook, just search Screaming Boy Podcast. Twitter at Screaming Boy PR. Instagram, Screaming Boy Podcast. You can find us on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, and the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. We will be recording hopefully sometime soon, once again. And I think that's about it. Guys, thank you so much. I think we have a sleeper hit on our hands with the Mayberry military camp. So I think we should all get together and write that.
We should make a wiki article about it.
Hell yes.
So if anybody has anything to add to that, please get a hold of us at any form of social media or anything like that, or info@screamingboy.com. Guys, I think that's it. So for Adam Runyon and for Jesse Starcher, I'm Ronnie, and we say lick a booze.
I'll march no longer. I'll fight no more. You can send out all the trash nibblers, but I'm done with war. Wind them up, bring them back, conscript deserter. The one drink is loose. Wind them up, bring them back, conscript deserter. The proof is in the juice. University Boulevard, New Hampshire Avenue, TikTok liquor, Thunderbird. And now that we have totally